And we are back with the Countess of Carnarvon. Thank you so much for being with us.
It's a joy to have you all here.
It really has been a special occasion for the tenors, I know for myself, in this beautiful, beautiful place. Tell us a little bit about the room where we are right now.
Well, the library is, I think, so well known from Downton Abbey, but it's also much more antique than you might think because there has been a home here for 1200 years. So there might have been a library in this area because it faces east, so the sun is not going to harm the books for, I don't know, 500-600 years.
Not only is this a physical presence, but it also seems to be, in a way, a state of mind. Do you find that?
I think the castle has its own character. It does, again, in the TV series Downton, but when I'm living here, it has its own atmosphere sometimes. Sometimes in the evening I feel it's settling down. At other times, writing on the top floor, sometimes I think, I'm not the only one here, I don't think, because you hear funny footsteps here and there.
I have heard that there are several potential ghosts here.
Well, I certainly saw a ghost shortly after my father-in-law had died, which led me to have a priest come and bless the castle. It was so amazing. It was welcoming people to our home, welcoming them to come and eat. And then we also asked the ghost to go on his way, if he didn't mind awfully.
Many of the storylines come from the history that happened here as well. Everything from the marrying of an heiress to help pay for things, a lot of that sort of stuff. Could you talk about some of that, please?
There are many comparisons to draw upon, and Lord Grantham married obviously Cora, or Hugh Bond of Elizabeth McGovern. Gets a bit muddled about what's real and what's not. The 5th Earl of Carnarvon, my character, the one who discovered the tomb of Tutankhamun, had a very adventurous life, but he married a proper heiress, and her dowry was £500,000 in 1895. So that, if there's any reason we're still here, it was Almina's legacy. And that was the first book I wrote, which took the castle through the First World War, when she turned it into a hospital.
Please tell us a little bit about some of the historical events here, the Queen visits, all that sort of thing.
There have been royal visits here to Highclere ever since certainly Queen Caroline in the 18th century, married to George II, the one before the one who lost the colonies in Hamilton. My favourite song, actually. But and obviously, particularly in the time of Edward VII, the Prince of Wales, who came to stay here in 1895, and then, of course, the Queen, who was my husband's godmother, which was an extraordinary honour. The Queen has visited here. She used to visit with my parents-in-law, so I was lucky enough before I was married to Geordie. He had said to me, you know, we're going to go have something with my parents tonight. This was about 4 o'clock, and by the way, the Queen's going to be there.
What was the conversation like? If you could kind of describe that for people who may have seen The Crown or something like that, but don't really have a feel for that. What went on?
I just wished to not be forward and not get it wrong. So I would follow the conversation, not initiate it. And the Queen was always very aware of people's impressions and concern when you met her, that you'd be very much in awe or very worried about saying anything. So she always went out of her way to make you feel at rest, at ease. You always had to change lots of times through the day, and then I was always running along a corridor because you had to be in the room before the Queen arrived. And then whenever it became in the room, I was always curtsying. I wasn't sure whether I was supposed to or not, or who was coming in, but safest thing to curtsy. So you were just curtsying randomly. But I didn't mind at all. It was an honour, and I wanted to show respect. So, and again, not get it wrong.
What are some of the myths that people have about the castle?
I think, having seen the series of Downton, people may have thought we live with, you know, ladies' maids and butlers and things like that. It's one big family, slightly eccentric, slightly British, with an aptitude for practical jokes perhaps, or maybe not. And we're all just trying to look after this castle and steward it through our lifetimes.
Which was your, and I know this is a silly question, it's like asking your favorite child, but But which was your favorite book to work on?
This is a castle which is so rich in layers of history, of visitors, of people who've come here. So it's different ways of telling the story about all of the different generations of people who've lived here for over 1,200 years. I think that's extraordinary. There was no photographic book about Highclere. Oh my goodness. So I thought with At Home, this is a home. So At Home at Highclere is, I think, still a beautiful book. And what does the home do? It has food, recipes, welcome. It has stories, weekends, just like Maggie Smith, royalty, politicians, statesmen, music, Malcolm Sargent, Henry James. I mean, what an extraordinary wealth of stories to tell. And then I've written 2 historical books, and then my latest book, The Earl and the Pharaoh, I love because his lifetime was when all the technology which we take for granted today began. The cars, the planes, how we travel, how we get around, electricity, heating, plumbing, all of that came into the castle in his time. He had a passion for Egypt. He'd gone out there in 1906, won a concession to excavate, and every winter spent 2 or 3 months out in Egypt. Hard work and good fortune led them to discover the first 2 steps down to the tomb. So I suspect that with no Lord Carnarvon, no tomb of Tutankhamun. So his role has never been shared, explored. And I wanted to write a book which made you want to turn the page. What happens next? Because he was like the Indiana Jones, I think, of the Last Crusade, but with more care.
Is the lesson of Highclere perhaps that it's a sea of stability in a world of change?
Despite the antiquity and the heritage and the fact that this is a home with 250 rooms, which nobody would build today, but its vision, its imagination, it's inspirational. It's full of craftsmanship, it's full of care, full of time. It's that perhaps which often we're all looking for.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your graciousness.
No, thank you very much for asking me all the questions and putting up with my replies. Thank you.